Welcome to the Her Handmade Hustle Unplugged podcast. I'm Joanne, a female entrepreneur, small business coach, and a creative business owner on a mission to help and inspire other women out there who want to make a decent living doing something they love. If you have your own small business, or maybe you've been thinking about starting one but not sure where to start, then this podcast is for you. I share everything I know about starting a creative business from my own experience of running my handmade stationery company, Vintage Twee. It's as honest and as down to earth as me, and it's an eclectic mix of sound business advice, northern humour, and real life, because it's not easy, is it? This podcast celebrates the selflessness, the strength and resilience of women, because we possess a superpower so great that we can handle whatever life throws at us and come out the other side. We are survivors, we are warriors, and we are as determined as hell to succeed. Hello and welcome to the Her Handmade Hustle Unplugged podcast. Thank you so much for pressing play and joining me today. This episode is an interesting one, and I think it's one that a lot of women who listen to this podcast are going to relate to and are going to be nodding along, knowing exactly what I'm talking about. And I was inspired to record it from a conversation that I had last week with my friend, the baker. I should give her a name. She's called Sophie. Anyway, like we do every single day on the way back from the school run, we part ways at this bin, right, on the corner of my street. So, like, we both live in the same area, but she goes one way up the passageway and I carry on to my house. And there's this bin on the corner that we always stand by, and it always stinks of dog shit. Yet we stand there every single day for a good 15 minutes, like psyching ourselves up for the day ahead, having a right good moan. I don't know why we just don't move the conversation like a couple of metres down to the left or something. It's weird. Anyway, we were talking about everything that's going on in our lives and all the challenges that we are both facing. For me, it's been a time of very mixed emotions. It's been a roller coaster, obviously, the last few months of one thing or another. And I think this week I've gone through the whole spectrum of emotions. I've been happy and excited after I've had some really amazing progress for Her Handmade Hustle. I've got some PR opportunities that I've managed to bag to help promote the podcast, and ways in which I'm helping women like you just drive their businesses forward. So I've been really excited about that. I felt extremely relieved as my sister is coming to the end, or they're coming out the other side of her chemotherapy. It's been a difficult few months, and we're all trying to get back to some kind of normality, whatever that looks like now. I also got the all clear from my consultant too, which brought more relief and thankfulness. And then I've kind of plummeted in the opposite direction and felt really sad as I've been trying to process everything that's happened to us, feeling angry and a real sense of injustice. Then on top of all that, it's been managing my daughter's school anxiety and starting each and every day with extremely high stress levels. And I read that cortisol levels, that's your stress hormone, can remain in your body for several hours after a stressful event. And for weeks and weeks if you've got chronic stress due to something that's ongoing in your life. So it's like you are constantly in fight or flight mode and your body just never relaxes and recovers. And it got me thinking, how would I cope with all these things, these unpredictable life events that inevitably happen if I had a 9-to-5 job? I honestly don't think I would have. I think I would have been sacked by now. Anyway, so we were talking about all these challenges that we're facing. And then she just said something that really stuck with me. And she said, sometimes you just feel like you're in an invisible cage. And it really hit the nail on the head for me. And I think it will for a lot of other women too, who may also be feeling limited, personally and professionally, by their circumstances. And I wanted to use this metaphor, I love a good metaphor, to talk about how women, they're shortchanged still, I feel, in their options for work after major life changes, such as having kids or being out of the workforce for a long period of time, battling mental health conditions, maybe caring for someone. It's almost impossible for women to pick their career back up where you left it, physically and emotionally. You just end up feeling like your options are limited. And I don't care what anyone says, but there aren't many workplaces that will accommodate fully the needs and the demands of a modern working woman. Ones that fit around school hours, that understand if you need a day off last minute because your child's struggling getting out of the house for school, or, lets you leave work early twice a day to care for your elderly mother or father, or maybe just to have an impromptu duvet day because actually life just feels a bit too much sometimes, doesn't it? And so we find ourselves in this invisible cage, trapped by our circumstances and these barriers that are limiting our career options and having actually a really major effect on our self confidence and our independence and our mental health. So I felt like talking about these barriers and how they are the main driving force behind women starting their own business. If the opportunities out there are so limited for us after these major life events or things that are going on, then we have to go and create our own opportunities. And today I'm going to be talking about breaking free from this invisible cage and why starting your own business is the solution. I'm going to be giving you some practical advice to get started as well. So if you're in the contemplating stage, maybe you're not quite there yet and you're just still trying to work it all out, if it's something that you want to do, we're going to be looking at some small, manageable steps that you can take towards making a big change and getting back in the driving seat of your work life. And if you're already running your own business, whatever it may be, but I don't know, you're still feeling like it's running you, then I'm going to also share some things that you can do to make sure that your business is working for you and not the other way around. So maybe you're sat listening to this and you're just dreaming of, doing a Bridget Jones and giving the middle finger to your 9 to 5 job. Or maybe you're a stay-at-home mum and you've got 6 hours a day or less if your kids aren't at school yet, and you're desperate to get your identity back and do something for you. Or maybe you're an empty nester. Your kids have left home and you suddenly find yourself scratching your head wondering what you can do now. It just doesn't involve your kids because that's all you've ever known. Or wondering if you're actually even good at anything anymore. I sometimes think that, like, what can I do? Am I still good at this? The things that I used to do pre-child. Or perhaps you have caring responsibilities and you only have a few hours a day either side of your commitments to do something for you and make some money from it. Self-employment, it's fast becoming the only option for women of all ages and backgrounds to get back into the working world and, most importantly, to choose what they want to do that makes them happy. Data shows that more women than ever are starting new businesses, and there are now 1.6 million female-owned businesses in the UK, and that's 76% more than in 2003. That's huge. And they're calling it the rise of the she economy, which I really think is pretty cool and very empowering, the she economy. I like that. And, in 2022, so just a couple of years ago, women in the UK started over 150,000 new companies, which is double the amount in 2018. And they found that the main motivations of female entrepreneurs, what were they? Well, they were flexibility and they were purpose. The exact things that I just talked about. Flexibility because we are the ones responsible for getting the kids to school and bringing them home again, or, for caring for our elderly relatives. So we need that flexibility that fits around our lifestyle. Purpose. Starting your own business gives you back a sense of self again. And it's something that's all about you, right? It's born from the very essence of what's already inside you and what you are naturally good at. It makes you feel happy, more importantly, and fulfilled and at peace. All those feelings that we want to be waking up with in the morning to release those feel-good hormones and endorphins. Having your own business is a celebration of you, and it's a way to feel in control again of your life and break out of this invisible cage. So let's look at the most common traps that create this invisible cage that we find ourselves in, because there are lots of circumstances that occur that put us in there, whether we want to or not. And that's just life. This is part of being alive. Now, we've obviously touched on the biggie for a lot of women, and that's choosing to have a family. Like, we are sometimes punished for having a child, making that choice. You have a child or children and then everything changes. We have little people that depend on us. And today it's part of keeping bloody civilization going, isn't it? Women have to have babies and if we want to survive. Yet we can't access the jobs that we did before. Most often, like the things that we spent years getting qualified in training for, just like that, we can't get them back. And all that work that we did is gone. And because we can't do this, we find that our self-confidence gets less and less, and so does our sense of identity. Because why should we have to choose? I don't care what anyone says, but women get the shit end of the stick as a whole. I really feel like we do. And the effect on our mental health is massive. Like, can you imagine if employers said to mothers that they can come back to work 10 till 3 p.m. doing exactly what they did before and just adjusted the working day for them? Like, I guarantee that these women would work their arses off to make sure that they got all their work done within that time frame. It wouldn't make a difference if they were there 9 till 5 or 10 till 3, they would still get it done and they'd be able to access the roles that they had before. I mean, in my previous job, right, when I was a youth worker many years ago, and it was an office full of young people. We were all in our early 20s. It was, some days it was fun and some days it was never really hard work, but it was harder work. But guaranteed every single day for the first hour, we'd be in the kitchen making brews and scrolling Facebook. And the last couple of hours of each day, we'd be playing battleships in the office or leaving early because we'd made up a meeting. Now, really, we were at home with our feet up watching Deal or No Deal at 4 p.m. I love those days. But the point is, I easily did all the work that I had to do between the hours of 10 and 3 p.m. So why can't this be an option for working mums on paper? It's this inflexibility that's one of the main reasons why we feel that we're stuck in this cage and we need to break out and we need to go it alone. Another trap that creates the invisible cage is having that gap in employment. So whether you were off for a few years to raise your family or care for someone, or even just to manage your own health, maybe you've got a long-term health condition, it has a massive impact on your ability to get back into work. I mean, I've got friends who are highly qualified in what they do. And one was a medical researcher, like important jobs, some of them life-saving. And the fact that they've been out of the game for a year or two or three, for one reason or another, means that employers won't even consider their applications. It's ridiculous. It gets them so angry. These are intelligent women with these life-saving skills. I mean, she even tried to get a part-time job at Marks and Spencer's for Christmas. And the shifts were like weekends only, when you actually want to be with your family and chill out. Or they were like 7 till 11 p.m. at night, which is like ridiculous for mums of young kids, as most of us are asleep on the sofa at 9 p.m, aren't we? Passed out from sheer exhaustion. And we've got no chance of living it up after dark in the Isles of M&S. It's not going to happen. So what's she done? She started her own business. Another trap that I find that keeps us in this cage, it's health and disabilities. That's a big one for a lot of people. And I know quite a few women who would absolutely love to go out to work and have a chance to contribute financially to their household, as well as getting back to what they know and what they feel good doing. But they're struggling with like postnatal depression. That's a big one for women. Bipolar, autism, physical disabilities. And it's just not possible for them to be able to commit to full-time work for someone else. So their confidence is low. Some days they can't face the world and it just all seems too much. When you work for a company, you can't just hide away on those days, can you? You have to go in most of the time. Well, obviously, we can pull a sickie, but you can't be flexible like that. So women end up not getting back into the work they used to do or want to do. And instead, they end up trapped in this cage that they don't know how to break out of. So all of these things that we've just talked about, they are the very reason why we feel our options are limited by circumstances that are beyond our control and that are just part of life and being alive. Like I said, they're going to happen if you want to live a life. But they are also the reason why we should be taking matters into our own hands. So these barriers, okay, we need to switch them on their head and we need to think, right, okay, this is stopping me at this moment from doing this. I can't get a job here. They haven't got the hours that I want here. I can't fit this around the kids. I can't fit this around the grandkids. But what you can do is take those barriers, switch them on their head, and explore entrepreneurship as a tool that is going to help you break out of this invisible cage. It's the very reason why I did it, okay? So I started my stationery business in 2010, Vintage Twee, as the result of a destructive relationship. Like, I was married before, very briefly. I mean briefly. Like, honestly, if you've not listened to my very first podcast, which I ever recorded, I'll go into all the gory details on that. I won't go into it now, but do have a listen and you'll find out exactly what happened to me. But, that's what happens when you marry someone you met on a plane, I guess. So, yeah, it all went wrong. Anyway, I was low, like rock bottom low. And I'd returned from America, which is where I ended up living with the person in question. And the marriage had failed. I'd been mentally beaten to within like an inch of my life. I just couldn't even, my mum didn't even recognise me when I got off the plane. When I came home, I couldn't face going out, let alone work. But I knew that I had to earn money if I wanted to get back on my feet. Because at the time, I was living back with my parents. I felt like I'd just taken this massive step back. I was, 27, 26, 27. And yeah, I just felt a total failure and a complete mess. So I had a grace period of a few months where like my mum nursed me back to health and I started getting a little bit stronger again physically, but mentally I wasn't there. So what did I do? I took all that pain and all that anger and all that determination and I worked my absolute arse off to create a path for myself, which would mean that I could do it all my way. It meant that on those days when I couldn't get out of bed, well, that was okay because I didn't have to answer to anyone. No one was waiting for me to show up for my shift. I didn't have to call in sick. I didn't have that worry hanging over me. And I just used to ride those days out and I'd maybe dip into my business that I was building up. At the time, I did what was manageable for me. I was earning enough to get by. And those dark days, they got less and less. And I did this until I started to feel better. And once those days became less and less, I began to truly fly. And for me at that time, having my own business was the only option. It was. For me, it was like, if you don't do this, I honestly just did not know what I was going to do. So before we talk about exactly how we bring having your own business and starting your own business to life, how we break free and make that commitment to going it alone, I just want to acknowledge the impact that these invisible constraints can have on women who find themselves being trapped, because we are all carrying around these huge sort of weights with us on a daily basis. And God, they are heavy, aren't they? It's exhausting. So one of the things that we often feel is helplessness. We can feel like we really, really want to do something. It's there in our heart and we want to do it, whether it's to contribute financially to the household or whether it's just to get out of the house. But we can't for all the reasons that we just talked about. And then the resentment sets in. I mean, it's not uncommon for women, particularly mothers, to be like silently punishing their partners, or not so silently, depending if you're like me or not, for their life not changing at all. Like, you have a child, obviously this doesn't go for everyone, but this is for a lot of people, and you bear the brunt, you bear the lion's share of the parenting. And, for men, they literally get up, they go for a poo for half an hour, have some peaceful screen time, they get themselves dressed, have a couple of brews, and they just skip happily out the door. See you later. And all the while, like, I'm there. This is me now. I'm there fighting a losing battle, trying to shove something relatively healthy down my child's throat for breakfast, which never happens. Make their packed lunch, wrestle them to get their underwear on whilst they're upside down, remember their reading book, remember the donation for non-uniform day, the bloody manky school mascots that stayed the weekend with us and's got to be returned, everything. I mean, I don't have time most days for any breakfast before the school run, let alone the luxury of a hot drink or half an hour in the bathroom. Sometimes I can't even have a wee, so I have to wait till I get home. So is it any wonder that we feel this resentment building up? And it's no one's fault, it's just circumstances. But it just feels like it all falls on us. It's not intentional, like I say. Someone needs to do it. And it's usually the woman or whoever has sort of the flexibility to be able to provide that round-the-clock care. And, as I was writing notes for this podcast episode, I was watching the film Sing. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a children's film. And my daughter's obsessed with it at the moment, and we have it on about 5 times a day. Anyway, it's about a bunch of animals who have got amazing voices, and they get discovered and they're in a show and they become famous. It's really good. It's got a really good soundtrack as well with some cool songs. But anyway, there's a mum pig in it, can't remember her name, who has this ambition to sing. But the first scene that we see of her is her in a kitchen, and she's surrounded by about 30 piglets who she's trying to feed breakfast to. It's absolute carnage. They're chucking things all over the place. She don't know if she's coming or going. She's flustered and stressed. And then her husband comes in. He goes, "Where's my keys? Have you seen my keys?" And she goes, No, I haven't seen your keys. Anyway, then he finds them. He grabs his briefcase, and then he just buggers off to work and just leaves her in this complete mess. And she's just there staring out of the kitchen window at this massive line of washing, wondering when she is going to be able to follow her dreams. And it just was like, it came at the right time. It was the perfect example of the invisible cage when I was writing the notes for this episode. Another feeling that we can't escape from is feeling of entrapment. Like literally you are being held hostage by your circumstances. And this is one that I struggle with a lot, as my daughter has terrible separation anxiety and she's attached to me at the hip like every waking moment. I mean, God, I don't remember the last time I went out for an evening meal with my husband or anyone for that matter. I think the only time that I haven't been there for her at bedtime was when I was in hospital for 5 days. That's it. 5 days off in 5 years. It's stressful and it's suffocating, and it's no wonder that we sometimes feel trapped. And all these things that we're feeling, they take such an emotional toll on us, and these unwanted feelings of being undervalued, experiencing a real loss of identity and our sense of self. It's like our independence is just gone all of a sudden. You wake up one morning and it's gone. And that's a hard pill to swallow. So, it may seem so far a little bit all doom and gloom, and like we just have to accept that as women, there's still this societal expectation that we make all the sacrifices, and we accept that our work will never be as important as our male counterparts, and that's just the way it is. Well, it's not, okay? We can break free from this invisible cage, and we don't have to feel all these things that you might have felt in the past, me included. And the way that I did it, and the way that you can do it too, if you are feeling any of these things that we've talked about so far today, is by starting your own business and doing things your way. So, how do we get started? If you haven't already got up and running and it's just a seed in your brain or you're thinking about it, like, how do we do it? And how do we make sure that this is going to work? If you have already set up on your own, maybe you're there, maybe you're like 6 months in, a year in, longer, and you're just starting to feel a little bit wobbly about it all, wondering if it's actually going to take off. Is it going to work? Well, you have to start, okay? So if you haven't already started your business, that's the first step. You have to make that commitment, not just half-heartedly, but I mean 1,000,000% all in, do or die. Failure is not an option, right? Imagine that your life depends on it, because to some extent it does. Not so much physically, like you're not going to drop dead if you go back to a 9 to 5. Well, you might, depending on how stressful it was. But no, this is your life. Like, you've only got one chance to do it your way. So for me, back in 2010, when I was desperate, I'd moved out of my parents' house after my breakup. I'd just started Vintage Tree. I think I was about 3 months in when I moved out, because I remember maybe a little bit longer, about 6 months actually, because I moved into my new flat in November. Yeah, that's right. And I started Vintage Tree in spring. And I got my own place. So I had to pay rent every month or I'd get kicked out. Like there was no option because my parents weren't going to lend me the rent money every month. Like, I had to make it. I'd made that commitment to get out, start a life on my own with my own business. So it wasn't an option for this not to work. And I think that this fear of falling apart again, this fear of having to admit defeat and return to the cage, well, that made me succeed. I put everything I had, everything into getting Vintage Tree off the ground, like every scrap of time and energy and money. And I didn't have a lot, but I put it all in there and it worked. And it took probably around 6 months to start seeing a few consistent sales, but it was all going in the right direction. Even if I only got a couple of sales a month or I got one a week, it would then increase to 2 a week, 3 and 4 and so on. So I could see the upward trend and that it was working. And you know what? Yes, admittedly, I had more time and energy than I do now. As we get older, obviously, priorities change. So in my mid-20s, I didn't have the responsibilities I've got now. Definitely had much more sleep than I ever get now. So, that wasn't an issue. And that was probably why I could do 14, 15 hours a day to get it off the ground. I don't want to work those kind of hours now as a 41-year-old. And that might be you too. You might just be happy doing a few hours a day and that's all you want to do. And that's absolutely fine. Okay. But, now as a knackered mother who is constantly batting away this boomerang of bad luck that just keeps on coming back to me and my family, like, I'm exhausted, I'm tired. So yeah, I think the fact that I was younger with less responsibilities and less battle scars did help in the speed of which I got Vintage Tree off the ground. But I am doing it again now with Her Handmade Hustle at age 41. And admittedly, it's harder. It's taken longer to get established. Without a doubt, it's been a slower process. But doesn't everything take longer when you're older? It doesn't come quickly. So you have to be patient. But it doesn't mean it won't happen. We just have to be prepared to be a little bit more patient than maybe we would have been when we were younger. And not to give up. And to take small, manageable steps, just a little bit every day. Do something every single day towards growing your business. Doesn't matter how small it is, whether it's an email to somebody, whether you're working on a new range, it doesn't matter. Just be involved and present in your business and it will grow. And it is the way that you'll move it forward. So if you've not started yet, then maybe you can begin by thinking seriously about what is it that you love to do. Like, explore your interests, if you can even remember what they are, because that's half the battle, isn't it? Like, what do I even like to do anymore? Like, what am I good at? Loads of things, okay? You need to think about this and then research some ideas of what you could do based around them. Think about what problems you could solve for people. Like, I don't know, maybe you love organising. Okay, maybe it lights a little fire in your belly when you see everything lined up neat and tidy and in its place. Okay, maybe you could offer a home organisation service in your local area or a cleaning business if you like cleaning. Maybe you are a ace baker, or you absolutely love to write or take photos, or you've got an eye for interior design. Whatever it is, you have to think about what you love or what you've always wanted to pursue, rather than aiming for something big or traditional. Like, you have to focus on your passion and your purpose. So like for me, it was paper and stationery, and that's why Vintage Tree was born. And now for me, in my 40s, it's about helping other people. I love the idea of organising the contents of their brain, like helping them get things clear and seeing them succeed. For you, if you are already, 6 months into your business or longer, and you're still feeling a little bit wobbly, not quite sure, maybe go back to the drawing board and look at, are you doing the things that really make you happy? Is there another avenue you could go down? Is there a different way that you could approach this business? Can you make different products? So have a think about what it is that really gets you excited and gives you those butterflies in your belly. So for me, I've got a huge heart. I've got a real genuine need inside of me, like to wrap people up in cotton wool, just take care of them until they're ready to go it alone. Like I've got a really strong maternal instinct, and I think it often infiltrates into my working life too. Can't help it, because I honestly believe that if I can just make a difference to one person's life in any way, then that's just amazing. Like, why wouldn't I want to do that? That is kind of what I feel like my purpose is here on earth. I do. And once you start seeing these little steps that you are taking actually work, like you might get a sale on Etsy, someone might leave you a lovely review, or you get a feature in a magazine. Maybe even it's things just like making it to your kid's nativity play because you worked your hours around it and you were there without having to book a day off. Like that's job satisfaction, isn't it? That's winning in life. And that's the reason why you can't quit. It will happen. And you must acknowledge each and every win that you get, no matter how small, because they are going to be the building blocks to your new, wonderful house that's got no bars, it's got no locks, it's got no barriers. The door is always open and you can just come and go as you please on your terms. It's liberating. It really is. And I think as long as you are realistic, know what you can actually do and things that you can actually manage depending on your lifestyle and responsibilities and your skill set, then you're all good. And only you will know that. You will know what you're capable of, the time that you have, and the skills as well. For example, there's a soft play place where I live that's most recently closed down. I used to take my little girl when she was small, and yeah, it was okay. It was a nice place, nice enough. But anyway, it's closed down now, so there's nothing in the area. Anyway, I used to look at this building and I used to think to myself, God, I could make that place into the most fantastic play centre. Like, one of these role play centres that you have for children, like little villages. So you've got a post office, you've got a cafe, you've got a vet's, car wash, all things like that. I'm just living out basically my childhood dream. But I thought I could set up one of these pretend villages as role play centre. And I had this amazing vision of creating this brilliant venue with maybe a vintage cafe inside, and then we could have an area for crafting and kids' classes, all sorts of stuff, right? But then I realised that I had no money, and I'd probably have to wait for like a rich, long-lost relative to die in order to fund it. B, I didn't actually have a rich, long-lost relative that I could rely on to fund it when they died. And C, I don't actually like any other children but my own. So that was a non-starter, that idea. Obviously, that wasn't going to work. But what I did have in abundance was experience running a successful creative business. I've got an ability to explain and simplify things. And I've got a real passion to help people. A bit of a natural ability, I've been told, to put them at ease. Like, these were my strengths. So that's how I knew that Her Handmade Hustle was what I wanted to do and how I wanted to go forward alongside running Vintage Tree, the creative side of my business. So this is what I'm asking you to do, okay? Whether you're just toying with the idea of starting a business, or maybe you're already doing it, think about what it is that you truly love, that you are good at, and that you have the skills for. I believe we all have an expertise in something. So if you sat there listening to this thinking, well, I'm not really good at anything in particular, or I don't even know what brings me joy anymore, because, I felt like that too, then ask someone else. Ask someone close to you, a husband or a partner, your best friend, your sister, your kids, right? Ask your kids if they're old enough not to give you like a totally useless answer, such as, oh, opening my ass pop, mummy. Yeah, because apparently that's the reason for my entire existence, according to my 5-year-old. Ice pop master. Anyway, I believe we are all born with something, a skill, a superpower that we can use to create the life that we want. One that isn't limited by our circumstances or life choices. Because we should be able to choose whatever the hell we want to do. And build something meaningful. It's already there inside of you, so no more feeling trapped, okay? We don't need to. It's time to create our own opportunities, just break the hell out of that bloody invisible cage. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I hope it has given you some fire in your belly. I hope it's given you some motivation to get started on whatever it is that you're contemplating and procrastinating about. Just make a start. Okay, it doesn't matter how small, make a start today. Don't put it off any longer, because it's the only way that we're going to actually get to our end goal of living the life that we want. As always, I'm here if you need any help or support or advice whatsoever. You can visit my website, herhandmadehustle.co.uk. There's a full list of my services on there. I will be introducing some more in the new year. I'm going to be having some smaller, more affordable monthly packages for anybody that needs help on things like, I don't know, social media. Maybe you want help with some newsletter writing, or maybe you want help setting up your Etsy shop. Anything, absolutely anything you can think of. I'm here to help you. You can also sign up for my newsletter. Again, the link is on the website. It's herhandmadehustle.co.uk/newsletter. And I basically release it once a month, and it's full of information, top tips, monthly insights into what's trending, what's not, some popular search terms. There's some resources on there for you as well to help you. Different theme every month. So do sign up for that. It drops into your inbox on the 1st of every month. So there's still time to sign up for next month. That's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. As always, do leave me a comment if any of this relates to anything that you've been feeling whatsoever. And if you can share it with somebody else, someone who may be feeling the same, I would love you forever. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.